Hello, everyone. It's Al here from Simply Wall Street. Today we are getting very close to the end of 2024. So I thought I would do a quick year in review just to go through all of the changes that have happened to our product because there's a lot, and even took me a while to go through everything that we've been working on. So let's get straight into it. The first area I'm going to talk about that we've spent a lot of effort in this year is portfolio, and you can find it here. So the first place is creating a portfolio. We didn't have linking for a long time, and that's been something that we've now reintroduced, and it's working really nicely. So as you can see here, you can link to almost every broker in the United States and also some of the bigger ones internationally. So I could type in CommSec here, which is one of the big brokers in Australia, and I can link my account. Now, linking means that we create an API link, and we get all of your data for your portfolio instantly, and it stays up to date. So it's a really, really quick way to get set up. But if your broker's not there, don't despair, because we also have a bunch of other methods which we've been working on, which mean it's just as easy to get your data in there. And generally speaking, the links don't have transactional data. And so that's something as well that you're going to start seeing here. In beta, we actually have this year been working really hard on transactional portfolios, so you can have a play with that, and that's going to be fully available early next year. So don't worry if linking is not available, because we have transactional portfolios, and we're going to make it really, really easy as well to import all of your transactions, because I know that can be really tiresome sometimes, especially if you're doing it with multiple brokers. Also, something that we introduced is demo portfolio. Because you don't always want to go to all that effort to set up your portfolio without knowing exactly how it's going to look. And so the demo portfolio lets you basically explore just a sample portfolio that we've created, see all the features, see how it works before you spend the time to create it yourself. Now, another area that we've worked on this year, if I go into an example portfolio here, ASX, I'm going to go into an Australian one. Is we've actually added more analysis, and we've added a new tab called dividends. Dividends tab is really exciting because if you are an income investor, the dividend tab lets you kind of forecast out how your dividends might look. And so the way that we do that is we use the dividend score that hopefully you guys are already familiar with. We have that in our company reports, and then we look at kind of how your dividend payments are allocated across the different scores of the companies, and how they're forecast to grow. Because remember, we have that data, we have that forecast data of where analysts think the dividend payments are going to go. And so you can see here in this sample portfolio, about 50% of the dividend payments are they're basically 5 or 6 star dividend paying companies, which is pretty tough, frankly, to achieve. And there's a few red ones there. And when it's red here, just remember that also doesn't necessarily mean that those dividends can't be afforded. But what it means is if you're building a dividend portfolio, that's not a particularly efficient company it might just be extremely low yielding. So something else that we added is also estimating the future payments. So what we actually do here, because companies typically only declare the dividend a few months in advance, and that's when it's confirmed. But often companies will pay on the same date or around the same date every year. And so we use the historical payments to then forecast when it's likely the dividends will be paid and how much it's going to be. So you can actually use this to go into quite a lot of detail, as you can see, many years out into the future of what your dividend payments might look like. Now, this is a great segue into, of course, something else that we worked on, which is Screener. So in both of these examples, if you weren't happy with how your portfolio is looking, you can either go here, and I can say, I'm going to go find some other dividend companies to look at. Now, of course, it's defaulting to US. I'm going to change that. I'm imagining that I am in Australia, but you have to imagine that this is an Australian portfolio. And so this again is now I'm screening, right? So I can use this to find other companies that I might want to add. And if I go back, I can also where are we here? I can also find upcoming, because again, we know when companies are going to pay those dividends, so I can look at upcoming dividend payment companies here. So that then leads me to Screener. Now, Screener has had a big overhaul this year. So it's really exciting and it's really, really powerful now. So I'm going to run you through some of the different things that you can do in Screener. So the first thing that we introduced is we introduced alerts and this kind of concept of new. And actually the easiest way to see that is to go to the Discover tab. And what we're now doing is all of these screeners, these are the ones that we've kind of curated for you, but also if you save your own, we're constantly looking for any new companies that match that criteria. And so I can see in here that some of these screeners have already got, right, new companies. So back to the powerhouses one, 7 new companies. Okay, I'm going to click this one here, and I can actually see that these are the 7 new companies that are matching that criteria. So that's really powerful, and I will see that as well on my dashboard, and I will also be sent an email, right, every week with any new matches. So this new concept is really powerful, and it really means that you can create a screen and you can just leave it to work for you, right? You don't have to keep going back here and seeing, oh, does anything else match my criteria? So that's really, really cool. And also as you're exploring, it updates. So if I say go, right, I'm going to set this up as an Australian one, and I'm going to start, well, I'm going to go, we're in dividend theme, so let's do dividends. Right, it will update as I go. Right, one new company. Okay, well, which companies? Oh, I've got to save it to see that new company. But there's one new company in there, so it's constantly updating as I go when new companies have matched in that last week. So something else that we added, and this has been requested for a long time. Let's do a US one to start off with. Was more metrics. Okay, and so the original screener had, I would say, a fairly small list of metrics, and we haven't gone berserk on here because realistically with screening you don't need to go too crazy, and the Snowflake should be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But return metrics, really useful, right? We can now do all these return metrics that weren't there before, and of course, like I said, you can set these up to do alerts. So if you want to get alerts on anything within the last 7 days it's moved outside a certain range, now it's very easy to do that. We have some interesting ones here, which is days since listing and days since the last earnings update. That is really powerful because you can use that to see companies that have recently listed and companies that have recently announced earnings, and that's often a good way to detect, say, companies where there's something new happening. Valuations, we rounded this out really well. It was a little bit of a gap that we had before, that you could not screen for discount to analyst price targets. So if you're looking for those stocks where analysts are undervaluing the stock, you can now do that here. You can say, okay, well, I want say a little bit of margin, say 10%, anything that the analysts are saying is more than 10% undervalued, I want to include it in here. And of course, what I can do then is get that alert right now. Of course, lots of companies are matching that because lots of analysts are bullish on companies. But that's really powerful, and that wasn't possible before. We've also added a few other popular valuation ratios. Again, there's so many you can use, but I mean, this is pretty much should keep most people happy. And again, you can get alerts on those. Revenue growth is in here, which is exciting. That wasn't there before. So you can do revenue growth in past and future. So, forecasted revenue growth, which is great. And the last one, which was requested for a long time, is buybacks. So now it is under the dividend section. We're going to kind of lump that together, and we also have that in the company report I'll share in a second. But you can now screen for buyback yield, and you can screen for total shareholder yield, which is the sum of the dividend yield and the buyback. So that's really, really powerful. And also this one was not in there before, which is a dividend growth rate. So again, if you're looking for growing dividend stocks, this is of course growth of payments, right? Annual payments, not the growth of the yield, which can be all over the place. You can use this to find companies that are growing their dividend at a reasonably good rate year on year. So that's really cool. And as I said, if we just go to a company, well, let's see if I can guess one. But yes, is Apple, for example. So Apple, they pay this very small dividend, but they do have they do buybacks. And so here we've got dividend yield and we've got the buyback yield. And of course, we've got the total shareholder yield. So that's now included in this section, and you can see that for any company. Okay, Screener. There's so much to do on Screener. So that's it's become very powerful, which I love. Now, we've got lots of new metrics to play with, but we have something else, which I think is really novel and really exciting, which is keywords. So keywords is a way of searching for themes. In everything I've said so far is all about screening for metrics, screening for that those certain fit within either the snowflake or the metrics. But now you can include keywords in it, and I'll show you some examples of that. So I've gone back now to Discover tab, and if we go to, for example, let's use a really simple one, quantum computing stocks, right? How are we doing this? Well, we are doing this by looking for the keyword qubit, right? Because any company that is involved in quantum computing will always usually have this word somewhere in their description, and it's actually the company's description that's used in these keywords. So, like again, I can find another example. Well, let's make one ourselves. Let's reset this, and let's put in something fun like Bitcoin. Why not? So I can put Bitcoin in, and I can find 103 results. Companies, of course, number one, MicroStrategy with the infinite money glitch, but we can then find any company that has some kind of relationship with Bitcoin. That is now possible here with keywords. And like I said, we are going to track that all the time for you. So you can say, if I saved this, I would get an email every week with any new companies that now match that. Now I could combine that as well with other filters. So I could say, okay, I want some future growth in there, right? That's cut out quite a few companies. I want some value, and probably going to have nothing. Okay, 8 companies. So so you see what I mean. So this is really cool. Now it does take quite a bit of exploring, but have a play. You can use commas, you can use different phrases, but yeah, it's a really new way, I would say, to discover companies that you may not have heard of, and especially for industries like mining, things like that. You can use certain areas that they might be working in. You can use certain materials. It's really exciting. I think even in the example we see this one here, or lidars for autonomous driving. Palladium is a rare earth metal. So there's really such a huge range, and we've actually got a link in our help center where you can see some more examples. So now finally on Screener, something else we did is we've really improved the links between the companies, right? So we now have a much nicer way of visualizing each company, and of course, whenever you're scrolling through a company report, you're going to see those crop up. So that's also a big improvement. And I'm not on what's happened there? I'll back up here. I am on a desktop now, but the last thing we did with Screener was vastly improved it on mobile. So jump on the mobile app, and you'll see that it is so much better now on mobile. So anyway, that's really cool. Okay, now what is next on my list? Oh yes, okay, let's get to it. So this has been a huge development this year, which is narratives. So what are narratives? Narratives is a really powerful way of making decisions on companies, and it's really simple. A narrative is just a story about a company, but it's linked to a forecast, right? Some kind of forecast in revenue and earnings, and that forecast is linked to a valuation, and that is the same for all narratives. So they all use that consistent model. Now this sounds like really, really simple, and you're like, yeah, cool, Al, I get that. But when you use this in your investing, you vastly improve your decision making, because you're now using a consistent method. And what we find when we talk to investors is that's actually one of the biggest challenges, is people don't really have a framework to make decisions. And so every time a decision needs to be made, they're using a different method or no method at all, and that's when you end up making really emotional, low quality decisions. Now, reality is that, as you guys know, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time to understand a company, to go deep into it, and basically arrive at that decision, arrive at that narrative. And that's why we've turned this into a community. And so we are not expecting everyone to go and create their own narratives, although I will show you later it is really easy to do. But that's why we made it a community, because there's already so many other investors out there who have great ideas, and you can already find a lot of them on here. So we now have this community tab, which you can go to, and this is getting updated every day with narratives from our customers. This is, some of them are from our own analysts, but a lot of them are coming from customers, and that's just growing and growing. And so you can come and just explore ideas here. Some of the companies are undervalued, some of them are overvalued. That's like, I guess that's pretty normal. And we also will be sending something called weekly picks, which is our team's kind of best picks of the week from the community. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox. Now, let's build our first narrative. Let's do an easy one. So I'm going to go to CrowdStrike. Let's just use this example that is here. So let's just start on the company page. Everyone's familiar with this. Now, first of all, what do we have? So if we scroll down here, we've got a new section. This section shows how our user base is allocating their fair values, right? Because like I said, a key part of a narrative is the fair value. Now, some of these will be ones that people have come up with themselves, and some will be ones that they're following. But you can see, of course, as you'd expect, there's quite a range of fair values for this company, and I can see some of the narratives for the company. So I can go and see not only these fair values, I can actually go and see the story behind it. Now, of course, we start with the most undervalued, and we go all the way here to the most overvalued, right? So I might go and want to read this one, and I might say, well, what is it? Like, how is this person coming up saying this company is 200% overvalued? Now, I'm not going to read it now. It'll take too long. But you can go and read this person's, argument, if you will, on this company, and you can see how they've connected it. So what revenue in this narrative are they forecasting, and what earnings, and what multiple? And that's really how simple a narrative is. It's just those three numbers. We decided to keep it really simple so that people can have a lot of freedom of what they do. But there's always that consistency. Now, if I go back to CrowdStrike and I say, you know what, none of these really work for me. Like, I'm not buying into any of them. I don't agree with it. Then I can just go and make my own. So I can go create narrative, and this is a really, really easy way. And I think that it gets what we're seeing used in two different ways. The first is the screening. It's a really quick way of getting a feeling for the valuation of a company. Now, as you know, we already have our own valuation section here, and this is, like I said, unbiased. This is us looking at the data, and you can go and see our models, what drives this. This is unopinionated valuation, but now we're introducing opinion. Now, this is not simply Wall Street's opinion, this is your opinion. But I might say, okay, let's go create that. Where was I? Cool. Let's go create the narrative again. So I might say, okay, so let's look at revenue, for example, 17% a year. Well, yeah, they could probably continue doing that. That might be something I can roughly see. Okay, let's look at profit margin. Well, that's interesting, because this is only now in this forecast. This is just the default. This is only a 4%. So I might say, you know what, good quality companies usually have, especially tech companies, a much higher profit margin than that. So I might change that to something that I think is more reasonable, and suddenly the company is looking undervalued. Now, this could just be used when you're screening, when you're just getting to know a company, and of course, the idea is that it's used if you're doing your research. So typically you can then put your research in here, you can build up your ideas, build it up, and keep adjusting, and then when you're ready, you can save. So we've really made it really easy. And that then is used now in our watch list and our portfolio. So you're going to come right around. Now, so in our watch list, what we now do is we allow you to choose for your stocks which narrative you want to go with. Now, you can choose from the community, you can choose from the analyst price target, which we actually use AI to complete. So you got the price target and you have the narrative behind it. You can use a discounted cash flow, which is the one in the Simply Wall Street report, or you can create your own. And so This, like I said, gives you a really great way to make decisions that really wasn't possible before. It's not just that it's a fair value, it's actually that it's a story behind it. And so these are the companies that for example, that you might be looking at. This is ordered by valuation. Now, if these are the narratives that I believe in, the companies that I should be getting excited or looking at buying would be the ones at the top, because those are the ones that are undervalued. Now, of course, when you choose a narrative, right, when you have that fair value, we're going to update you whenever it changes, and we're going to be doing alerts on price and things like that. So we will help you make that decision. We'll help you stay in touch with it. And of course, it's the same thing in a portfolio. So now I'm going to go to a different portfolio, and this is a US one, and I can go to the narratives tab, and I can actually see that these are the narratives for the companies that I have in my portfolio, and I can actually use that to improve my decision making. I can say, well, okay, so these companies are still undervalued and I still own them. That makes sense. But these companies, so for example, Tesla's had a great run recently. Now, because I haven't updated my narrative, right, that company is now looking overvalued. So I kind of need to now reassess, which is pretty common, as you guys know. Company starts doing really well. Do you keep holding? Well, this is a great way to make that decision. Same with Palantir, right? That narrative that I selected on Palantir, it's now looking overvalued because the price has gone up a lot. And so that's a time for me to reassess. Something like an Airbnb, right? I actually haven't, if I go back to this tab here, I can see on Airbnb that first of all, my narrative isn't showing it to be particularly undervalued, right? In fact, it's slightly overvalued. But not only that, I'm actually down on that company. And so this would be one that you might want to reassess. You might want to say, well, why are you holding this company if you don't actually think that it's undervalued? So we are really excited about narratives. And like I said, dive in, explore. There's already a ton of really, really interesting ones there. There's discussions going on. And so, yeah, it's really exciting, and yeah, enjoy that. Now, last bit I'm going to show you, which the team has been working on, which might be hidden, and for a lot of people, they won't really be too excited about this, but we're very excited, which is we have started translation this year. So you can come up here and you can now translate into these languages, and we'll be adding more languages soon. And of course, this is in development, so give us, if it reads strangely, give us the feedback, we'll fix it. But yes, we are now going into languages outside of English, because Simply Wall Street has always covered those markets, and it's really exciting now to actually have that localized product, and it makes a big difference, especially for people where English isn't something that they might have learned. This now becomes accessible, and like I said, we already cover every market, so it's actually really exciting. Okay, well, I am getting out of breath because I'm excited and I've talked too much. But anyway, we've really had an amazing year, tons of new stuff in the product, which so congratulations to the teams at Simply Wall Street who worked on that, and they worked really hard. And there's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming, so it's just gonna keep getting better and better. So, and thank you to you guys for being our customers and for using our product. We love investing and we love building great products for you guys and seeing you guys succeed. So yeah, it was a great year, and let's looking forward to 2025. All right, I'm gonna sign off.